We're gonna start. Okay, we're gonna start here. Yeah. What's going on? Ice Vav again. So there was a whole lengthy explanation as to why, notwithstanding the fact that the guf itself, the guf hagashmi, like every davar gashmi, is a direct consequence of sevev kalamin, which creates the davar gashmi, the chomer haguf, yesh ma'ayin. Nonetheless, for the chibur of the nefesh and the guf, for the chibur of the nefesh and the guf, we need, nonetheless, the food and drink, which in sevev kalam in itself is of a higher level. It's the koich hamafti lasos. So continuing our isvav, omnam kol ze orak achshav, this is all now. Sham shachas b'chinas sev kalam behel and behester ponim. That since sevev is, it comes down in a concealed way. Obviously, did not feel the dvar avaya creating every moment. So the guf cannot get the direct experience, the direct investure, creative force of sevev, other than if it would not be as it is currently, enclosed and concealed in the levush gas, in the coarse garments of doimim, tzemech, and chai, which are rooted in sevev, and even higher than the guf. Avalasid lavai, it's tzarchi in the whole thing, but let's get the words here. Avalasid lavai sheyoy b'chin hasev kalam and begiloi, but lasid lavai, when sevev will be revealed begiloi, leester panim klal, without concealment, as a yichya guf b'chin hasev kalam and believe mitzoyis levush etzach, then the body will be able to live from sevev directly without the intermediary of the garments of daimim, tzemech, and chai. The Indian is in the loss of Ksiv. Mashiach will come, so the pasuk says, Molor, it's deya es havai. So the world simply, meaning the world is filled with the knowledge of God. The Oretz Koilel Kol HaNivroim. Earth means all creations. K'maimer, like the pasuk says, HaKoil Hoye Min Ha'ofer. Everything was from the earth. Afilu Galgal HaChamba, even the orb of the sun. So then the physical world with all of the creations that are from the earth, what's going to be the day of the awareness? Esavai, what's es? Al derech es hatafel. Similar to es, meaning, the Gemara says, subordinate to, secondary to. The creation will be nullified to Havaya. Shabitl the das elyon shmitzad gile b'china sev kalam. What's the nature of the bitl? Not the bitl of das tachten, but das elyon, which comes as a result of the uncompromised gilu of sev kalam. And the difference between das elyon and das tachten is the das tachten, the starting point is the self, and the self surrenders. Das elyon, the starting point is elikus, and therefore there is a self. Okay, do have bein yiram mei havai le yira esavai. Two psukim in two prakim of Tilim, one perek lamed gimel, one perek lamed daled. They seem to be referring to the same thing, those who fear God, but there's a subtle difference. There's those who fear of God and those who fear God. Mei havai and esavai. the Yiru Mei Havaya, which is one step removed, fear of God or from God. There's an of, there's a from in between. The mem. So that's a bitl hayesh mitzad b'chinas hamalak halam. So that's a bitl of the yesh. The yesh emerges, and why does the yesh have his sense of independence? Because Sev Kalam is screened and filtered by Malak Kalam, Mishtal Shalus, producing at best an awe of God from a distance. Distance meaning the starting point again, there's the self-awareness. So that's a Yiru Mei Havaya. But the Yiru Es Havaya, so that's lost love with the bittul. Not from, but nullified to, and that is the bittul of sevev. In other words, that the whole metzius doesn't have a sense of independence at all. It's an absolute wonder that only exists because God wants it to exist. There's no inherent validity, no inherent metzius existence. So this is the diak of our pasuk in Zem. Moving go. Hadik b'mashakos of Mola. That's deya esavaya. So oretz, he said before, already means what old varim gashmi. So the bitl of all physical things, akil hoyim and offer, all is going to be esavaya shah bitl shmitzad b'chinas sev kalam. That's the bitl, including the guf, and therefore you'll conclude there's no need for the whole process, the whole system of the guf being nourished by a source that is higher and comes lower, as we said earlier. We'll reserve our summary to, so what's the husband for the end? Let's learn more. So on that day, Hashem will be one, and his name will be one. What does it mean? The Gemara, in fact, asks, what does it mean? It's not true. The Gemara's question is actually, and only then and not now. It's not now that God is one and his name is one. So he's explaining the Gemara. The Gemara answers. The Gemara answers because now his name is not pronounced the way it's written. So it's not one. It's written Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, we pronounce it Adnai. But then, meaning that we will refer to him, Shmoi, in the same way that it's written. That's the Gemara's answer, and that is what he's going to say here, explain it. There are two levels of Havaya. And he called Havaya Hashem, Havaya, Havaya. Says the Zohar, what are the two names? Havaya de Le'ela, Havaya de Lesat. There's the higher Havaya and the lower Havaya. Havaya de Lesat V'Loshem Hav. So the Havaya, the lower Havaya, is from the word being, who brings into being. Whereas the higher Shem Havaya is past, present, and future all at once, beyond completely the whole union of creation, beyond creator. So the Zohar says, so the Zohar says that now there is a line, actually it appears in the Chumash. In the Chumash, there's a line. There's all Allah Sinai passed down the lines, vertical lines appear between words. We encountered this in previous Maimorim. The Zohar points out that by Avram, there's a line, Havaya, there's a line, Shmuel, there's a line, but not by Moishe. Moishe Rabbeinu, the Posuk, the Eibishter calls Moishe, there's no Psik time beinayu. Why? Because Moshe Rabbeinu Lamata was the way he is Lamayla. That's why when he was born, the house was filled with light. even as he came into a Guf Gashmi from the outset. Mashenkin here is Havaya, there is a line. Because there's Havaya Delayla and Havaya Delasata. That's the point. By Yemahu, on that day, it's going to be what? By Inyan Ba'avida. So what's the Inyan Avida? Everything is avoid. It's the point of it. It's all the dargas to be translated in avodas Hashem. So avay mitzad avay deleil is yichudi lo. I'm sorry. Avoid mitzad avay delesato hu inyan yichuda tato. The lower havay is yichuda tato, as we said. Again, the starting point is creation. Creation acknowledges the Creator. Even though even now in avodah there's the amshochas, we're not mechayre, we are not shaykh to yichudi lo fundamentally. We exist within creation. The starting point is consciousness. The starting point is I believe. I comes first. I acknowledge. I love. So l'chura, what's in again avodah havaya delayla? Lo said love. Fine. What about now? So he says, even though it does exist now, in what sense? He wants to stress the other way. The true gilo is only lost love. Even though even currently there has to be the amshach of yichudi lo and yichudi tato. Duay brings here from Kod, where he speaks the barichos, that even though obviously we're tethered and bound to yichud tato bitlayesh, nonetheless a person has to akalponim in seichel entertain and appreciate yichud ilah, even though it's a dimion. Dimyonis shav, false dimyonis is one thing, but true dimyonis, to imagine, is a tremendous virtue, which he speaks in Tanya a lot about. And that's what he's saying here in Perek Zayin and in the Kod, that, and he speaks very strongly that if a person doesn't have Mizman Lizman, that's what Chassidus introduces, if we don't have at least that, I mean, Pashat, to use Ashkofa. The Ashkofa on some level we have to know the truth. Yichud Yilo, he's not shaykh to feel it. He's saying the words, and so, he understands it intellectually, because intellectually it makes sense. The Eibush is the only reality, and that's the end of the story. And we're here because, as a consequence of his will, we have no intrinsic reality. So even though it's a dimion because we're only entertaining. Dimion means to entertain or imagine the truth, even though it's not yours. It's not actualized. But he says there that if a person doesn't have this, it's behechrech. And the whole avodah is bitlayesh only then, because he's dealing with the yesh and not connected to something higher a little bit, then there's the inherent danger, and then not just the danger, it's going to happen. That the yeshes, there is gishmak and Yiddishkeit and everything else, you'll find gishmak and other things. It's all I understand and I acknowledge. It has to be mitzad the objective truth, even if it's not his own truth, but he has to know it. And that's like a little cold water, mizman, that keeps a person on the right track, even though right now doesn't feel, doesn't see, and there's a big temptation and so on. It's not unlike Yosef, tempted, and then the Mus also the same. The Mus, Dimion, father wasn't there, but he imagined him there. The Kyoinoi Shel Yaakov saved him. He wasn't shaykhs not to give in to the temptation. Such bederech hatev ganz in the shaykh. Oh, but there's something higher, and I'm connected there, and that's my truth, even though I don't feel it. So just knowing it and being aware of it and the dimyan, hence a chassid has to have the picture of the Rebbe in his heart and his mind. Exactly what he's talking about. He's Yechudi Ilah. He's connected to Yechudi Ilah. That's what's going to keep him. On his own avodah of Yechud Tato, strive mightily, but there's some things you can't beat. Mitzad you. The Moleh HaKadosh Baruch Hu Israel, that's the same meaning also. If God wouldn't help, Yitzhar would overcome the person. This HaKadosh Baruch Hu Israel, this is Yechud Ilah, that's the avodah. So he's saying that even though now there's this avodah, ki yadua, again, shekimi dichud tato hayidei yichud ilah dafke, that the kiyum to stay in the battle is only through moments of transcendence, akoponim, in dimyan. It's also Shabbos on the weekday. For the avodah to be the way it should be, there has to be a disconnect on Shabbos. Otherwise, the avodah, never the sibirurim will not be, it should be. Become part of the problem, not the solution. So this is rotzin shuv. It's the same general dynamic. But nonetheless, so even though now there is this inyan of mikol mokim psik time bebeinayu, Havai has the psik time as we explained. Shaudas yichud ilah behela. It's behela. It's a dimyan. Also love yichud ilah yichud tato. But that's the chiddush of Vayema who Hashem echad u'shmei echad. That will be the yichud of yichud ilah and yichud tato. As the Gemara says, the same way that it's read and read is yichud tato. That's our world. Calling upon it, summoning it, matter, the way it's read, the way it's written will be the way it's read, lasted love. Shabez Hashem is the Havaya Echad. That they will all be one. Shavai Meloshem Mahavet. Both Havaya invested at Yichud Tato, invested in creation. Havaya Meloshem Havaya Echad and Havaya completely transcendent in a third level, which we also encountered this in the Basi, the Ganim Amarim. I think of this year. That is Vata B'chines Havaya she'ein by Pirush k'mishakasa b'pardes. The Pardes gives a third Pirush, actually not a Pirush, that Havaya transcends all Pirush, meaning to say any explanation even beyond nature. Atzmizdik. Havaya as in being, and that's it. Is, not more than is. And not even is the way we know mitzvahs. So then, Havaya chodesh me'echad, in the kol ze yiyeh Havaya chod, shliyeh psik time b'nayo, there no longer be the hell and the tzimtzum. The psik time is the line that divides them, as we explained earlier. Moishe, because of gam u'shmei echad. So that's the diuk, because beyond the Gemara. The Gemara addresses Havaya chodesh shmei echad. The Gemara's answer is that now Havaya is written one way, echad, u'shmei, and read another way. The diuk here, Chassidus says that in Havaya itself there's a oneness that didn't exist before. Vayemahu. Havaya echad. That's the beer now, that Havaya de leila, Havaya de lesatan, even up and even the Pirush HaPardes, Havaya, beyond all seer, it's all one. Moishe, because of Gamu Shmei Echad, the pasuk adds not only is he, but Shmei Echad. So what does it mean his name is one? This is the Gemara. Not like Elam Hazeh, Elam Haba, Elam Hazeh, Nichtav B'Yud Kei. In this world, this is what the Gemara was quoting before. In this world, Eibish's name is written in Yud Kei. Venigleh, Ba'alev Dalet, but it's called Admo. Yemahu, Avalo Elam Haba, Kula Yechad. Nichtav B'Yud Kei, Venichtav B'Yud Kei. That's the Gemara's answer. Now he's going to explain the Gemara's answer. It's we will call him the way he is written. So that's the shame, the name. So what's the union of Shema Echad? Rabbi Bektsar on the Bia briefly Yeshabelam has a Yeshchilik ben Aksav Nichtav Lakri Nikra. There's a difference between the way the Abish's name is written and the way he's called. Shenichtav beyutke. He's written Yutke. Shezehu Kameisha B'Teira. So Teira writes Yutke. Sheshom Meragili B'Chinas Havaya. Their Havaya is revealed in Teira. But Elam Hazeh, that's us, the way we refer to it, the Nikra B'Alev Dalet, but he's called Adnai, Aleph Dalet. Shezehu Kameisha Nikra is Gala B'Elam. This is the way Elikus is called and revealed in the world. Sheshom Loi Mer Shem Havaya. Their Shem Havaya is not revealed because the Shem Havaya is revealed to be totally nullified and dissolved out of existence. Again, Yichudi Ilah. Kim Bechinas Adnai. So how do we refer to him as Adnai, Lord? And what does the Lord mean? The Lord means Adon al Kol Biryesecha, the Lord of all your creations. The Lord already implies and legitimizes creation. He's the master of creation. But the master already acknowledges the validity of that which he's master over. So that's the way it is now. So now we call him Lord Adon al Kol Biryesecha. Why? Because the best we can experience in a sustained way in the Pnimius is Bittul Hayesh or Yichud HaTorah. That's the Baruch Shem Kin Machus Elam Vod. But the Chiddush is Vayemohu Hi Hashem Echad Shmei Echad U'Mola Oretz Deya Es Havaya, not Mei Havaya but Es Havaya. But Lo Sid Lava Yinikre K'Moshe Nichtav. But Lasid Lava is going to be called Eibishter the way it's written, Shagamba Olam, even in our world and our experience, unfiltered, unplugged. And that is his meaning. His name is Manda Shmei Nikra. The name is the way he is called, related to Shenikra B'Shem. He's called by a name, Shogile B'Olam, the way he's revealed in the world. So how will we call upon him, experience him, relate to him? And he lost it. Even the name is one. That even in the world will be the Gilui of Echad, Havaya Echad, Sheyer Ba'olam Gam Chinas Havaya Delayla. Then the world will be suffused and will be illuminated with Havaya Delayla, Sheyin Akilu Yirasev Kalalmin, that all of existence and the Chiddush is. So the Shaila is, what's also will dissolve out of existence. It's Hepech HaKavana. What happened to Dira B'Tachtoini? The answer is Havaya Oiz La'ama Yitin. That's the whole Avodah that we did in the thousands of years since creation, since Matan Torah. The whole Avodah is in order to achieve this Givaldige Chiddush. On the one hand, we retain consciousness, but the Metzius Gashmi. But consciousness recognizes, not starting with consciousness. Consciousness openly, we say these words, but consciousness will experience its own metzius as a consequence of the Eibishter's desire. Front and center foundationally. Bemis is not understood. If you're going to feel the Shem Havaya, the Keach HaMahava, as the Yichudi Ilah, definition of Yichudi Ilah is that's it, you dissolve that existence, no metzius. But we call it Yichudi Ilah, the Chiddush is only Mikoich HaAtzmus. That on the one hand you could feel the creative force that you are Ayin ve'efes mamish muchlet, which means you are not. And your whole metzius is the Koyach, which brings you into being, and you'll experience that. Experience your nothingness. Experience your nothingness, and that the only truth is Elikus. That's the pshat in the pasuk. Havaya oiz lavayitin. The Eibishter gives strength to his people. That's the keich of Torah rooted in atzmos that can allow for this chibur of creation's awareness of self and the absolute truth that there is no self. And the only reason that there is this self is because God wills it. So if that's that's the truth of yourself, then it's not you. It's him. But that's going to be revealed, loss of love. This emes, not this emes, sorry, the emes. So now concluding to explain why we won't have to have food and drink. This is all to be masbir, why the guf, agashmi, won't require the filter of the rooted in Seviv in a higher level. It can cause the chibur of the nefesh and the guf. Let's see how it concludes. Since Eir will be begoli, why? Because the world will be refined, the guf will be refined, and be able to receive it through refined through what? Again, the strength of Torah mitzvahs, the whole Aveda, Mesiras Nefesh, Tshuva. So then, we won't need food and drink. Lefi shaguf, top of page now. Mezuchach lagamri, the guf will be entirely mezuchach, refined. And Yekabel Chayusim B'chinas HaSev Kol Almin, and he'll get his chayes straight from Seviv, directly unfiltered, Sheyor Begiloi, Shaloi Al Yedei Emtsois Levusha Maichel, without the means of the garments of the Maichel. Now it has to be filtered through this very elaborate process of a higher source coming lower. A higher source, but coming lower. It's got to come lower. It's got to come into our world. And it has to come lower because it comes from a higher source. That's why we need it. As he pointed out earlier, we see in nature that all things need not that which is above them, but that which is below them. The lower levels of life are what they need, they're critical for their existence. That's the reason, because the sherish is higher. But it's all through these lavushim, the halim and the tzimtzum and the shviras hakedim and the yeridim, screened and filtered and obscured and all upside down, lower, higher. But then the emes, save kalam. The loy not only that.
Stop for a second. We said until now, the guf needs the Michael, which is higher. Why are we dismissing the Michael, which is higher within the Seviv, when Lasad Lavi will come? L'chayre, if the Michael is higher, we should Lasad Lavi, when there's no concealment, we should see the Maila and the Michael. Why do we see the Maila and the Michael now?
It's only higher.
And Lasad Lavi, we see the Maila in the guf.
Because Lasad Lavi, now the guf, as we said before, even though it comes from Sefer Kalam, and it's filtered through Tikkun. So Lasad Lavi, when there's no filters, period. There's no, the filters remain, but they don't conceal anymore. Everything remains, nothing's changing. But they don't conceal. So therefore, we don't need, if Seviv Kol Almin is revealed by Tarosa, and the guf is now mezuchach to be able to receive it, so we don't need that. The whole process of filters and a higher source that comes down lower, when this guf will have direct to Seviv in its purest form.
Do you mean to say that this perception that the Michael is higher is only now, but really the guf is higher?
No, that's all equal. Then it's going to be revealed that it's all equal. All equal.
So then why is the food going to be dismissed if it's all equal?
So the food will be created, sustained, but the guf won't need it. The guf won't need it.
So you're saying basically,
yeah.
Are you saying that the guf is higher than the Michael? Essentially,
no.
The only reason that you need the Michael is because the guf is not completely refined, and therefore, zeitweilig. In the meantime, you need the Michael to connect the guf with the neshama. But Lasad Lavi, when all barriers will be broken, and we're going to see the true source of the guf. It won't need the Michael, which is a means to an end.
Right, but I don't know why you're saying the Sabbath Agashmi is comes from Sev of Kalalma.
Correct.
Now, Sev of Kalalma Be'etzem is not given to levels. The fact that we spoke about levels before, that's a compromise in Sev of Kalalma. And the divine system is such that the lower something comes, the higher its source. But Lasid Lavoi, we're not saying that the Guf is higher than the Michael. No, Lasid Lavoi, all Dvarim Gashmim, Koil of the Guf, will be direct experience, the direct coming into being from Sev Kalalmin, equal to all Dvarim Gashmim. We won't need the system anymore. We won't need the system of one thing nourishing the other.
So in other words, you're going to bypass the Michael.
Yeah, the Michael exists. We don't need it. Why would the Michael be? That's part of the B'tachtonim, but of course, we revealed there.
So before Mashiach comes,
the only thing that
Michael
doesn't need to be nourished right now is the daimon. The daimon doesn't have to be nourished because the daimon is the real
water.
Yesh Hanivra is the daimon mamash.
Water, which is daimon, without the Dvar Hashem, wouldn't be.
Right. So the Dvar Hashem is going to be revealed transparently in all things equally.
So why wouldn't you need food if they're both? They're both coming from. Okay.
Well, nothing is a means for an end. Everything expresses elikus and it's being simply. There's no means for an end. There's no means for an end. Actually, okay, this needs further elaboration. Tomorrow I'll speak about it. And it's true of Torah mitzvahs too as well. That right now Torah mitzvahs is a means for an end. It's in order to elevate the world. But once the world is elevated, the world becomes a dirle is barachin Torah mitzvahs for. The answer is not a means for an end, just a pure giloy expression of the Eibishter, and that's going to be the world. Nothing serves anything else anymore. Everything is fundamentally one and expressive of him. And his desire was dir b'tachtonim, so there's going to be the food and the doimim, and meich and chaim medab. It's all going to reflect him, express him, but not as a means. Just like Torah mitzvahs is not a means. Now we do Torah mitzvahs in order to connect. We are connected. It's just the pure rotz and atzmi.
So when Mashiach comes, it's going to be this gala that the food is really not higher than the person. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's no higher and lower than. All is him. Everything, holy shtalshel is everything. Everything is all is him. Equally. Vul, blikvul, higher, lower. Huh?
So the lower something is the higher its source is.
That's now.
That's just how it kind of looks through the
That's by divine design. The whole design is what's the Eibishter's kavanah to make a tachten. Aleph. What's the tachten? The tachten feels distant and far and low and concealment. Then the tachten discovers first step in the resolution of the whole purpose of creation, that the lower something is, the higher the source. And then the third stage is all equanimity, all equal, all him. That's your chas in the Maimon. You all said this in the Maimon. Malchus is lower than Zoh. It's the Makabel, Zoh is the Mashpia. Then comes the big chiddush that Malchus is rooted higher than Zoh. And that elicits That elicits the Atzmis level higher than Malchus and Zoh that unites them. That's the whole template. Okay, we'll leave the last 2 lines. 3 lines and revisit this tomorrow, hopefully with more explanation.